This lecture will cover the topic America and the Great War, and the focus question is, how did the United States get involved in World War I? In June 1914, the assassination in Bosnia of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, started a chain of events that engulfed Europe in the most devastating war the world had yet seen. European nations that were engaged in the scramble for colonies had entered into a series of alliances that sought military domination in Europe. Austro-Hungary soon declared war on Serbia. Because of the alliance system, Britain, France, Russia, and Japan soon found themselves at war with the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, which included modern-day Turkey and much of the Middle East. After initial German victories, the war became mired in a long stalemate of bloody and indecisive battles. New technologies such as submarines, airplanes, machine guns, tanks, and poison gas produced unprecedented slaughter. In the 5-month Battle of Verdun in 1916, some 600,000 French and German soldiers died. 10 million soldiers and uncounted civilians perished in the conflict. The Great War inflicted a blow on the optimism and self-confidence of Western civilization, whose philosophers and statesmen had long celebrated reason and progress. The war also shocked the socialist and labor movements, which had valued international working-class solidarity over nationalism, only to see workers of different nations kill each other for their national governments. Americans were deeply divided over the war. Many Americans sided with Britain, associating it with liberty and democracy, and Germany with repressive and aristocratic government. Others, particularly German and Irish Americans, opposed supporting the British. Immigrants from Russia, especially Jews, also did not want America to support Russia and its Tsar, and the despotic Russia's alliance with Britain and France made it hard to believe that the war was a conflict between democracy and autocracy. Many feminists, pacifists, and social reformers believed peace was necessary for reform at home, and they opposed American involvement. Wilson at first proclaimed U.S. neutrality, but naval warfare disrupted American commerce and threatened America's neutral stance. In May 1915, German submarines sank the British liner Lusitania, killing nearly 1,200 passengers, including 124 Americans. Wilson protested strongly, and Americans were outraged, giving support to those who urged America to prepare for war. Advocates of preparedness included Theodore Roosevelt and businessmen with ties to Britain, America's greatest trading partner and recipient of more than $2 billion in wartime loans from U.S. banks. Wilson was strongly pro-British and called Germany a natural enemy of liberty, and by the end of 1915, ordered preparedness to begin. In May 1916, Wilson's preparedness policies seemed to have worked, as Germany suspended submarine warfare against non-combatants, allowing Americans to trade and travel freely without requiring military action. "He kept us out of the war," became Wilson's campaign slogan in the 1916 presidential election. The Republican Party was reunited, and its candidate, Charles Evan Hughes, lost to Wilson by only a narrow margin, including the votes of women in Western states. Wilson acted quickly. On January 22, 1917, Wilson called for peace without victory in Europe and expressed his vision of a world order including freedom of the seas, restrictions on armaments, and self-determination for all nations, large and small. Germany soon resumed its submarine warfare against ships sailing to or from Great Britain and sank several American merchant ships, gambling that it could starve Britain into submission before America intervened militarily. In March 1917, British spies made public the Zimmermann telegram, a message by the German Foreign Secretary Arthur Zimmermann to Mexico asking it to declare war against the United States and regain its territory lost in the Mexican War. A revolution in Russia that deposed the Tsar and established a constitutional republic made it seem plausible to believe that the United States would be fighting for democracy. On April 2nd, Wilson asked Congress to declare war against Germany, which it did with a small minority of dissenters, in order to make the world, quote, safe for democracy, end quote. By the spring of 1918, when American troops arrived in Europe, the Communist Revolution led by Vladimir Lenin in Russia the previous November had led to the withdrawal of Russia from the war. Lenin also exposed secret treaties by which the Allies had agreed to divide conquered territory after the war, embarrassing Wilson. In January 1918, Wilson reassured the public that the war was a righteous cause by issuing the 14 points, stating war aims and providing his vision of a new international order. This involved self-determination for all nations, freedom of the seas, free trade, open diplomacy, the adjustment of colonial claims with the colonized, and the establishment of a general association of nations to preserve peace. Wilson believed that this organization, which became the League of Nations, would act like the kinds of commissions progressives had established in America for ensuring social harmony and protecting the weak. By September, nearly 1 million Americans helped turn the tide of the war and push German forces in retreat, especially in the Meuse-Argonne camp. This campaign left 100,000 American soldiers dead and wounded, and was one of the most significant and deadliest battles in American history. With his forces retreating on November 9th, the German Kaiser abdicated the throne, and 2 days later, Germany sued for peace. Over 100,000 Americans died, only 1% of the 10 million killed in the war.